Wow, was that beautiful or what? Thank you so very much. So we got a little energy flowing in here now, huh, guys? So this is the month where we did science and spirituality, and this is our last talk. It's called Mind in the Cosmos. And let your imagination flow a little bit about mind and cosmos. To me, this is all about where we are. Let's take our grand inheritance and let's go forward and let's make a difference in the world. And so what I wanted to start with was the early people from the earliest point on. In a way, we were chasers of light. One of the earliest spiritual traditions, the Egyptian tradition, they liked to see the light in the stars. And they saw this dark, dark night, and the stars would shine through, almost like a colander, letting through the light that they so craved and worshipped and wanted to be a part of. And then when we go a little bit further, we get to the intuitive tradition, where the shamans were also seers of light. Because there's a tradition that the shamans would actually go, and they wanted to select plants to either heal people or select plants that they knew would have some psychoactive effect on them where they could see beyond the normal realm of the physical world. And they would actually see the plant shimmering, and that's how they made the selection. And one that you probably heard of in the modern day is ayahuasca. And it's actually now people are traveling to South America to be treated with ayahuasca for PTSD. And it's actually been very helpful to them. But that has an interesting story within itself, because the psychoactive part of ayahuasca, if you took it alone, you would have extremely severe stomach trauma. Yet the shamans were guided to the plant that would counteract that stomach trauma effect. And when you mix the two, it has the desired effect. So we were all these searchers for light in the early days. And then the world had philosophers come in. And they came into schools. The first school was the school of the materialist. They thought that the world was just a grand mistake, a grand random event, that the plants out there was just from atoms forming into molecules, molecules forming into some type of organisms, and when a creature was created, somehow, some way, there was enough random events that there was a heart that did one thing, perfectly coordinated with the lung that did another, and a kidney that did another. And the other school of philosophy that went back a long way, actually it went back to some of the old spiritual traditions. The one I'm thinking of the most is the Hindu tradition, which Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Science of Mind philosophy, said we're the closest to, because they were the first to come up with this idea of a unitive consciousness back of all things. So in the Hindu tradition, they have this saying that consciousness is the ground of all being. They have the saying, the one manifests as the many. But what this tradition is, what we teach every day here, it's the creative process, is we teach that mind creates thoughts, thoughts impresses upon the law, and the universal law creates our reality. And there's been philosophers all through the ages that have been following this school. And then when we come to the 1800s, that's when this thing called New Thought came to the forefront. And they started to pick up on it. And so we have this New Thought principle that picked up on it. And this New Thought principle that picked up on it came from Emma Curtis Hopkins, came from Thomas Troward, came from a lot of different people. And we've just finished our class in a class it's called From Whence We Came, which is a class learning all about the people who created this great movement that we're a part of. And we just finished our class projects. They're Some of them are up here. You're welcome to come see them after church service. And there was two very special presentations. One of the students in the class presented music from the early on time until the present time. And from the early on time, the music was godlike, much like a chant, much like an om. Very simple melodies, very soothing, all blended together. And then she pointed out, very astutely by the way, that when we had the Renaissance, that's when we as a culture started subdividing things. Personalities got into it. The music wasn't all of one melody or of one key or anything like that. It started to go all over the map because that's the point in time when we were demonstrating differences in personality, and that's the way we were thinking at the time. And she pointed out, luckily, some of the newer composers are sort of going back to the old way, where we're getting more of the God sounds, the spirit sounds. The other one that we did, and it was really an interesting one, was a man that Ernest Holmes took a lot of his philosophy from, and that was Plotinus, and his picture's on the poster board up there. I know you can't see it. And what we got from Plotinus lived about 400 years after Plato and 200 after the Common Era, and he gave us a creative process. He said there's the one above everything, and this is this one that's spirit, that knows no time and space, that's beyond time and space, yet interacts with it all. And that steps down to individual mind, and that individual mind creates things, and it steps down to the world we live in. Just as we say there's spirit, there's law, and there's manifestation. So we come along, and now we're differentiated, and then a man by the name of Jesus comes. And he's also to bring some light with him, but he's also to bring some love with him. And he's also to teach us that God is within us, that there's no point in place where God is not. And he had to do this in a bit of a strange way. It talks in the Gospel of John, he was about to be stoned. And Jesus says to the people, he says, I have shown you many good works from the Father. For which of these do you stone me for? They replied back, we are not stoning you for any good work, they replied, but for blasphemy, because you are a mere man and claim to be God. Jesus answered back to them, is it not written in your law, I have said you are gods? And so Jesus wasn't just making this up to get out of a tough situation, and because he was quoting the Hebrew Bible. In Psalms 82:6, it's actually written, you are gods, you are children of the Most High. Now, I'm not telling you this to pick a fight with the mainstream Christianity or anything like that. I'm telling you this to bring the principle that he's bringing forward to us forward. So many times he said to us, it's your faith that has healed you. And he says, what I have done, you're going to do greater things over and over again. And so the leaders of the New Thought movement, specifically Judge Thomas Troward, picked up on that and said this to us. Because spirit is infinite or limitless, spirit is everywhere, and therefore it follows that the whole of spirit must be present at every point in space at the same moment. So that means that spirit is something beyond the physical and is there for each and every one of us, wherever we are at some time. There's a very ancient tradition that talks about God that says its center is everywhere and its circumference is nowhere. So we have this concept of the omnipresence of spirit wherever we are. And Ernest Holmes picked up all of this. And in 1929, when they were going to first publish the first 1929 Science of Mind magazine, they said, Ernest, would you write down what you believe? And in a matter of a few minutes, he wrote 11 statements that we still love today. And the first one of these is a beautiful statement. It speaks exactly about this presence and who we truly are. And we still use it today. I read it in front of 500 people at the graduation of the practitioners and ministers a few weeks ago. And it goes like this. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. So that's the stage that's been set for us. That's the stage that's been set. We know we are spirit everywhere we need to be. And my challenge to you for this week is to know this truth about yourself and go out and act as if you know this truth about yourself. Go follow the teachings of Jesus, help someone that needs help. Go bring the bearer of this light and shine the way only the creative aspect of the divine that is you can shine. That's my wish for you. Thank you.
Isn't my husband smart? I know. He's way smarter than me. Okay. You guys are really good. And you're all good looking too. It helps, right? So I want to share a story with you. I thought it was the sweetest story. Oh my goodness. So there was this grandfather, and he was holding his granddaughter, and she's just a little girl, and he was reading a bedtime story to her. And she was getting sleepy, and she was holding his face and touching him. And she says, "Grandpa, did God make you?" And he said, "Yes, God made me a long time ago." And then he keeps on reading, and she's holding her face and touching it. And she says, "Grandpa, did God make me too?" And he says, "Yes, God made you not that long ago, just a little while ago." And she lays there, and she's sitting in his lap, and he's reading the story, and she says to him, "God must be getting better at it, isn't he?" Can you imagine? His wrinkly little face and her soft one. It's so cute. There's this Yiddish proverb that says that soap is to the body what laughter is to the soul. Soap is to the body what laughter is to the soul. And I think that's so true. I read this study that was done, this scientific study or study of behavior, and it said that children laugh 100 to 200 times a day, and that adults laugh 0 to 3 times a day in general. I'm like, oh my goodness. So my week was kind of nuts, so I'm not really doing any mind in the cosmos sort of thing. Spirit has decided there were other plans for inspiration to give to me, and a message that I'd like to share with you because it was a great lesson for me this week. And so, but first, I just want to ask you if you'll set this intention with me. Will you set an intention with me that we become the exception of those adults, that we begin to find some way to laugh or giggle or smile in our day? Because I know I could use it, and I assume that maybe you can too. And so if we can maybe do it for each other, send me a joke, I don't know, I'll send you a silly text message or something, and we'll work on it together, yes? Is that okay? Okay. Dr. Ernest Holmes, in this book called The Holmes Papers, it's this collection of conversations that he had with very small, intimate groups of people. And he said, one time he said, there's this urge within us, back and behind all of the suffering and the drama of this external world, there's this urge within us for joy, for happiness, for fun. He said, it's our desire, our real pure desire to love and to be loved and to feel happiness and to make other people happy. And he says it's about dancing and singing and having fun, and what is life worth if we aren't having a little fun? And I thought, well, I really like this guy even more. And then he says this. He's one of my favorite. I mean, he is the founder of the philosophy that we study here, so he is by far one of my favorite philosophers. And he says this: I have been spending 45 years of my life trying to get people to let their hair down. He goes, that's my life's work. 45 years trying to get people to let their hair down because it's really okay. It's really okay. And I needed to hear that this week because my week was intense. It was filled with pressure and chaos. I'm kind of a to-do list person, and so when life happens and my to-do list doesn't get done, I get kind of nutty. And my kids, one was being promoted in 8th grade, one was going off to Hawaii. They're both leaving yesterday. Apparently, teenagers, I still have to pack for them. My mom had some back issues, and she's in extreme pain, and so my family is the most important thing, right? You're my spiritual family. If you needed me, I would be there in a minute. My blood family, I would be there in a minute. Like, if we're heart connected, that's what you do, right? And so I ended up having to do my spiritual practice in parking lots using Audible so that I could at least get a moment of centeredness and meditation into me so that I could make it through the chaos. And I think that's what it's about, is like, life is gonna be nuts. That's just part of it, because there's other humans in the world, right? When humans are around, things get messy. So the message that came to me that was so inspiring was that there is this very small sliver of time, about 4 to 6 hours, on Friday evening when me and my kids and my husband, we all got to be together and just have a conversation and have a dinner together and have fun and pick on each other and laugh. And it was so soothing and healing to my spirit that it reminded me that life must be for good. That this thing that I call divine or God or source or whatever, it must be so powerful and so loving and such a force that 4 hours of love could heal a whole week worth of chaos, you know? Do you ever feel that way? Like you're chasing time and then something happens and it's like, oh, breathe. It's okay, you know? I feel like when we move into the awareness of this idea of our minds, of our consciousness getting to always expand, to be in the cosmos and our feet planted on the ground in life. As humans, we suffer, and that's just a part of it. And as spiritual beings, we breach that veil of understanding at times where we just know. We know this divine presence is more real and more apparent than ever. And those times don't always happen, when we need them to, but we come together in that. In this human experience, we come together with our feet on the ground, being in life as people with other people, and we also get to have our mind expanding. We get to be a part of that consciousness that's growing. And if we hold to that conviction, that no matter what the darkness is trying to say to us, no matter what the chaos that's going around us is trying to instill or fill us with fear, that there is a power so much greater than that, that is the urge for us to have life and to be filled with the livingness of it. And if we aren't having a little bit of fun, what is the point? What is the point? I want to share with you something that I found that Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of this philosophy, he also said this. And he wrote this very early on, he never wanted to have churches because our philosophy is not about a doctrine. Our philosophy is about teaching people how to think, not what to think. And it's about recognizing the oneness and wholeness and perfectness of us as spiritual beings. And so it can really be implemented if you want to be whatever religion you want to be. But a lot of people decided, that they really wanted to have a place to go to be in community with like-minded people. And so the majority ruled, and they got their way. And so we're here. But I want to share with you what his intention was. And I feel like when I read this, it invigorated me. It reminded me of what it is to be a part of a community like this, a spiritually progressive community. And so here it is. And I'm going to email it to you guys if you're on our email list. If you're not, put your email down and I'll have it to you by 12:30. He says this in Ideas of Power. He says, "We happen to have the most liberal spiritual movement the world has ever seen. And yet it is synthesized and tied together by the authorities of the ages and the highlights of the spiritual evolution of the human race. We are practical idealists, and we are realistic transcendentalists. The thing that is original about us is that we don't claim any originality, and that is the most original thing in the world. This is a new spiritual impulsion in the world. It has certain objectives in the world. It has certain purposes to teach and to practice, and nothing else. To teach and to practice. And we have to have the same faith in what we teach and what we preach and what we practice that the scientist has or the gardener has. He says, I think we should feel as though we are on a mission. Not a mission of sadness to save souls, but a mission to glorify the soul. We are the forerunners of a new race of people. We are the arbiters of fate, of unborn generations. We are the custodians of the chalice of truth. But we are not hung on a cross. We have a song to sing and a joy to bring to the world, and love, and peace, and happiness. That is what the Centers for Spiritual Living, that is what we are here to be and express together. So I want to invite us to just move into an affirmative prayer where we recognize that right here and now is the glory of that life that we are the incarnation of a divine intelligence. Call it what we like. We are the living expression of good. And it is up to us to be the ears and the eyes and the arms and the heart of this divine. It is up to us to shine that light. It is up to us to open our hearts and our minds in such drastic ways that all people everywhere feel the goodness and the love and the understanding and the compassion and the empathy of spirit to spirit, of the divine, recognizing the divine in all people, everywhere, including and especially starting with ourselves. Including and especially starting with ourselves. I affirm right now that each and every one of us at least senses that flicker of light within the center of their being. Every one of us now sees and feels and knows that there is a light within us that can never be extinguished. Though diminished at times and burning and raging fireworks at others, it is never gone. It is always our spirit. I affirm this and know that it heals the world, starting with ourselves. And for this, I am so very grateful. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.